today, what the presentation we're going to talk a lot about. I'm going to talk a lot about the CPA exam, particularly the new 2024 CPA exam. But you'll see it's called, the title of the presentation is Gain the Competitive Edge. The goal here is not just to walk out more informed, but actually more informed about what your particular plan is, so that you, again, can gain that competitive edge with your future employer, especially in regards to your CPA exam plan. So before I get started, informal poll, how many of you are eligible, or you think you're eligible, or you plan to start studying for the CPA exam this year, 2024? My newcomers, get the pizza. Okay, so no 2024. How about you think 2025 is probably when you're going to start this adventure? Okay, 2026? Show of hands, I don't know. That's why I'm here to figure it out. Maybe? Perfect. All right, I know what I'm working with. Great. Okay, so a little bit of background on UWorld. We've been in business for well over 20 years. We've helped over 2 million students successfully pass a wide variety of academic exams and licensures, so medical, nursing, pharmacy. I joined the party at UWorld about 6 years ago with the acquisition of Roger CPA Review. So you may have heard of Roger Phillip, or you may have seen a video of him with Roger CPA Review. That's where I joined UWorld. Last year, if you've ever heard of Wiley CPA or Wiley CFA, we acquired the Wiley Test Prep as well. So a huge investment specifically into our 2024 products. And then last July, another kind of big name in CPA Review that you may or may not have heard of is Peter Olinto.
That's amazing. Yeah. Peter Olinto is why I passed the CPA exam, y'all. He used to be with Becker, and he's amazing.
Yeah. So
there's like funny YouTube videos of him too.
Yeah. So, and wait till you see that. I have a picture of him and Roger being silly in our course. But so Peter joined the team last July. As mentioned, he had been a lead instructor for another CPA exam prep for about the last 30 years. So really, you take this combination all together times what we call the UWorld effect, which I'll show you later today. We really are proud of being an industry leader, specifically in accounting and finance test prep. Specifically within our CPA Review product, which I'm going to share much later at the end today, we're very proud that our students are passing the exam 3 times faster. So it's not a matter of just what you know, but how are you effectively managing your time. And then we have an exceptional 94% CPA exam pass rate, which I'll unpack those a little bit more later today. So before we get into the CPA exam, I want to start out by saying, first of all, it's a really exciting time to be in accounting, to choose this major and go in this profession. There's been a lot of change in the profession the last few years, particularly with the inclusion of data technology, right? It's not what it used to be 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. The reason why we're pointing this out is because as I'm talking about the new exam changes today, keep in mind the exam is meant to reflect the profession, not the other way around, right? The profession doesn't go, well, what's tested on the exam, and then expect those skills. It's what skills are expected of you, and then therefore is the exam properly testing those. So there's a lot of rapid movement, and that's why we're going to talk about some of those changes today. However, it doesn't matter if I was standing in front of you 15 years ago, 10 years ago, last year, regardless of what's going on in the exam, the same thing rings true. We partner with hundreds of firms throughout the country, partner with different academic programs. I'm always on campus. The #1 feedback that we always hear is, please encourage them to get it done as early as possible. So if there's anything you can go back and say to the next generation, you want to get the CPA exam done as soon as you can. Mainly for the 3 things that you're going to see here. So the first one is outright pass rates are higher. The sooner you can sit, this says after graduation, I'm going to say as soon as you're eligible. So you can sit for the CPA exam in Georgia with 120 semester hours, as long as you have particular accounting courses and you have your undergrad degree, you can actually start sitting for the CPA exam. There is a significant decline in pass rates 1 year after graduation, right? Because everybody starts getting into their career, they're further away from their courses, their classes, the content, the pass rates start to go down. I have never met anyone that said, I really regret getting the exam done right away. It's always the other way around, right? I'm now 3, 4, 5 years into my career, and I actually have to go back and study for the CPA exam. The second is larger firm bonus. So with many of the firms, you'll start to hear as you go through the recruiting process, they're going to incentivize you. So they may help cover the cost of a CPA review, they may reimburse, they may give you some time off to study, and then oftentimes they will give you a bonus for passing the exam. They tier the bonus, right? So some of the partner firms we work with will say, hey, we're going to give a $5,000 bonus if you pass before you start with the firm. Some might say $2,000 bonus if you pass within your first year. $1,000 bonus if you pass within your second year. At the end of the second year, we're not talking about bonuses and incentives anymore. The conversation has switched. So if you are going to go to an employer that is going to have a bonus incentive for passing the CPA exam, let's get all we can by getting it done. First, for number one, but number two, let's maximize the firm bonus. And number three, as I just mentioned, the longer you delay could be potential missed career opportunities. I'm going to say regardless of what your future employer expects, right? Because I'll talk to a lot of accounting students and they're like, well, my employer's kind of about the CPA exam, I'm not going into public accounting, I'm going into something else. Do it for yourself, because you never know what the long-term career path is going to look like, right? So you're going to do this for yourself. Earning potential for accounting students that become a CPA versus that do not, those that do become a CPA have an earning potential of over $1 million more over the lifetime of their career, right? So you definitely want to keep that in mind. And you don't want to be my future candidate that's now with your employer and that 2-3 year mark and you can't get promoted because you haven't passed the CPA exam and you're having to go back to square one for it, right? So keep all of these in mind, especially as I'm talking today, and think about your why. Why are you doing it? Why did you choose accounting? What's your passion? What goal do you have on the other side of passing the CPA exam? Because you're going to really want to hold on to that once you start getting into the study process. So in order to master your game plan and gain the competitive edge, we kind of got 3 areas here. The first is you're going to want to understand where you are in the process. So I saw some raise of hands. Some people know. Some are kind of figuring it out. The second, and where we're going to spend most of our time today, is understanding what is tested on the CPA exam. And then lastly, set a game plan up for success. More towards the end, that's when I'll highlight a couple of the features about UWorld, as I've previously noted. So let's start with meeting your state CPA requirements. If you did not know it already, it makes it very interesting for folks like me. Each state has its own set of specific rules to sit for the CPA exam and become licensed in that state, right? So it's hard to keep track of all of that. I have one slide on Georgia. If you are here today because you have specific questions about the rules to apply in Georgia, qualify in Georgia, or get licensed in Georgia, that would be something, my contact information is on all the flyers, and on the last slide, I would email me so we can dig into that a little bit more. Overall, my takeaway, a lot of candidates, a lot of students get confused at the 120, 150. Here's how it works, as I mentioned. You need 150 semester hours or 150 credits in order to become licensed in Georgia. That is different than qualifying to sit for the CPA exam. You need the 120 with particular accounting courses in order to qualify to sit for the exam. There's something in our world that's called the 4 E's, okay? It's your education, the exam, ethics, and experience. You typically have to have all 4. So again, education, exam, ethics, experience, all 4 combined is when you become a licensed CPA. So education is you need the 150 hours to become licensed. Exam, you need to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam. Experience, each state has a little different, so you've got 2,000 hours of work experience. I think that shakes out to a year or 2 under a licensed CPA. And then the last one, ethics, Georgia actually does not have an ethics test or an ethics component in order to become a licensed CPA here. I was doing a presentation with students yesterday. One asked me, hey, I'm gonna actually be going to North Carolina. Do you know their rules? Again, as you can guess it, email me, we can take a look at it, right? So do keep in mind, the reason why I say that is because it is a strategic advantage, if you can do it, to study for and start passing the CPA exam in tandem with getting your master's. MBA, master's in accounting, because you will then do what I call graduate career ready. So I go look at my employer and say, I've got my master's, I have my 150 done, and I have all 4 parts of the CPA exam done. I'm jumping ahead of myself. How do you do that? You look at your courses that you're taking in your MBA or a master's of accounting, and you match it up with sections of the CPA exam, and if I'm in tax classes already in school, let's take on the tax part of the CPA exam.
What if we weren't planning to be in education further than the undergraduate degree?
So you do have to have the extra 30 units in order to become a licensed CPA. So there's various ways that you can do that. So again, we could do an MBA, we could do a master's of accounting. Some programs have online certificate courses where you can take the extra 30 through online courses alone. my goal would be to recommend is if you have your specific accounting courses done for the undergrad, you get the 120, those extra 30, I would add value to yourself and your future employer, right? Like, I wouldn't take basket weaving and all of kind of those elective courses, but I would add on maybe some additional accounting courses or some business courses that would really make you strategic. But you do have to have the 150 to become licensed. Yeah, and that's pretty much across all states. The advantage for Georgia, and I'm from Florida, is that we allow the 120 to sit and the 150 for license. Some states, for example, Texas, up until recently, you had to have the 150 to even start sitting for the CPA exam, right? So you look at the strategic advantage, if I have the 120 and I can study while I'm getting those extra 30, I'm gonna graduate with the 150 even stronger, okay? Great question. All right, so again, every state's different. If we have specific questions, I'd be happy to help and we can go through that process. But as promised, we are gonna spend most of our time on setting your CPA exam game plan. So show of hands, how many of you know that there were exam changes that just hit the CPA exam before coming today? Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, oh, I know all of the changes. Ask me questions, Charlotte. I can tell you what the parts are. I've been watching webinars. I am good. How many of you think you're in a 7, 8, 9, 10? Show of hands. Okay. How many of you, if we did 1, is, I know there's changes, but please don't give me a pop quiz on what the heck is going on. How many of you would probably be in a 1, 2, 3? The best kind of audience. How many of you are solid 5? Like somewhere in the middle. Okay, good. You're all gonna walk out much more in a 7 or 8. I don't know if we'll get to a 10, but a 7 or 8 after today. So the CPA exam recently changed. The new exam launched January 10th. It was considered a big deal because the CPA exam always evolves. It changes either content coming on or off the exam or structure changes. Structure changes might be a new question type, an extra hour here, take an hour away there. That's always changing, right? Think taxes change, everything's always changing. What made this new 2024, they call it the 2024 evolution, what made it such a big deal is it was changing on both fronts. The content was changing, the structure was changing, we've got new parts, new titles. It hasn't gone through this type of a radical change in well over 15 years. I've been doing this for 19 years. When I first started, I was talking about the new computerized exam, right? So you think about the pace at which the profession is changing, the exam's out of date, right? It needed to evolve in order to meet the demands and the skills of the new marketplace. So change is not always fun. They're not doing this just for funsies. They're doing it very strategically with the AICPA. So what are you gonna see with the new CPA exam? You are still going to be expected to sit for and pass 4 parts. So no matter what I say from this point on, I'm gonna talk about 6 parts. You are only expected to pass 4 parts, okay? Here's how it's gonna work. Everybody in this room that sits for the CPA exam, you are all gonna sit for the 3 core parts. The 3 core parts are FAR, which is your accounting core, and I'm gonna go into detail about all of these, audit, or AUD, A-U-D, and the tax core, which is REG. So FAR, AUD, REG. Everybody has to sit for and pass these 3 core. This is no matter what you're doing, they want everybody to show and showcase that you can pass the same body of knowledge on those 3 fundamental areas. And we're gonna talk about what order to go in and all that today, okay? Beyond the 3 core parts, you get a choice in the matter. The old exam was AUD, REG, FAR, and then the 4th part was a section called BEC, Business Environment Concepts, in case you ever hear about that. BEC's gone away. Now you're gonna choose for your 4th part, you have a choice between what they call 3 disciplines. You've got ISC, Information Systems and Controls. We're gonna talk about all these today. You've got BAR, Business Analysis and Reporting. And then you have TCP, Tax Compliance and Planning. You pass your 3 core, you pass your 1 discipline, you pass 4 parts of the CPA exam. Once you choose your discipline and you pass the discipline, that is your discipline. We can't like super score this and take all of them. People have asked, I don't know why they would want to do that, but there you go. I'll talk about here some of the order in a moment. But again, 4 parts, 3 core plus your 1 discipline. You don't add anything extra to your name. You don't get to walk in and be like, I'm a CPA TCP. That'll mean nothing to anyone, right? What it will mean is that you took the exam under the new model moving forward, and someone might ask you. I'd actually say competitive tip number 1, after today, be ready to start talking about which discipline you might choose. Here's why. Your faculty have been well ahead of the evolution. We got the evolution update 2-3 years ago, right? So they're well ahead of it. Students are now becoming more understanding of what's going on with the exam. The furthest is the firms. It's not important to them, right? It's important to you all because they expect us to come out and say they need to pass the exam before they start here. I need to know high level what's going on with the exam, but not a deep dive. So what we're starting to hear is students doing the recruiting process. I recommend on your resume, put on your resume when you plan to sit for your first section of the exam, right? CPA exam eligible, planning on sitting for my first part this date. Show I'm already thinking ahead of it, right? You don't have to ask me, employer, what's going on. I'm telling you what I'm gonna be doing. Then they will ask, hey, you're sitting for the exam this year, next year? Didn't the exam change? Don't you get to like pick a part or something? You don't wanna be sitting there with the deer in the headlights, right? So you wanna be prepared and say, yeah, actually you do get to pick a part. Here's what I'm thinking. Does not necessarily give you a competitive edge, one part over the other, the disciplines. We talk to all the firms over and over, we go to all the conferences. That's number 1 question is there a particular discipline the firms want or like more? Nope. Guess what their feedback is to us? Just tell them to pick a part and pass the CPA exam. That's their number 1 priority, okay? So 3 core plus your discipline. We start with FAR core. If you've heard anything about the CPA exam, how many of you have heard that FAR is like the big, bad, ugly, that's the worst of the 4? It always has that rumor, FAR. In FAR, you're going to be seeing concepts that you've been learning in Intermediate 1, Intermediate 2. You will have a little bit government in FAR, and then you'll see here topics are split. So what that means is like leases and revenue recognition, there's a little bit in FAR and there's a little bit in BAR, that discipline, which we'll talk about here in a moment. Pretty straightforward. You'll see increased emphasis in source data, correcting errors in financial statements. I think FAR unnecessarily gets a bad rap. If you look at old FAR and new FAR, I'm not going to say it got easier, I'm going to say it got lighter. Okay, so if you talk to people and they're telling you all about FAR, you kind of want to be like, time out. Are you talking about the old FAR? Because I'm going to take the new FAR. Old FAR was Intermediate 1, Intermediate 2, Advanced Accounting, and Government Nonprofit, all on a 4-hour experience. So most of the advanced has gone out, and most of the government's gone out into a different area, and so that's why I say it's kind of gotten lighter. It's shifted gears, okay? So you got FAR, audit, very much like the previous audit that we saw. You do have additional coverage of data analytics. Remember I said BEC was an area that's gone, it's gone forever. They did bring over economics from BEC, so that's still on the CPA exam. And then you'll see every single section, no matter what, is gonna have some data and technology in it. There was a conversation at one point of like, do we make its own section be technology or data on the exam? Feedback came back, it's all over the place. It's all over everything that you're gonna be doing, so it needs to permeate throughout all of the sections.
So these sections, are these disciplines or core parts?
These are core parts.
Okay.
Yeah, so FAR is a core, audit's a core, and then reg is a core.
Okay.
Great question. Okay, so we have audit. Your 3rd core is reg. So reg is often referred to as the tax section. It's actually tax and business law is tested on reg. So you'll see here ethics also came over business law. The way to differentiate the reg versus TCP, which is that tax discipline, is that reg is routine tax, right? We don't care what you're going to be doing in life. We want everyone to be able to pass reg, so it's going to be very routine tax is what you're going to be tested on the regulation section. Before I keep going, what is a passing score on the CPA exam?
75.
75. When you're in school, was there an exam today? I thought there was a test. Okay, so when you're in school, you get a 75, you're not feeling that great, right? Like it's a C. On the CPA exam, complete opposite. It's victory time. There is an award, it's called the Watt-Sells Award. It's given every year to the students, the top 100 scorers on the CPA exam, right? Like overachiever max, great for them. We've had some come through UWorld, very proud. However, I'll tell you, throughout my career, I go to meet the firms and I talk to students that are now at the firms or they've passed the exam. The ones that are the most excited to tell me what their exam scores were are those that are like a 77, a 70. You know why? They did exactly what they needed to do to get to 75. No one's gonna ask. It's not like your transcript, right? No one's gonna say, oh, well, you got a 76 on odd. They just care that you passed. So do keep that in mind, especially as I'm talking about the content today, on what you're gonna see. Okay, so bar, odd, reg. Let's get into the disciplines, because this is where you're gonna have to choose. So bar, what you see, what's tested on bar, business combinations, derivative hedge accounting, employee benefit plan statements, data analytics, and visualizations are some of the main areas. This is where you're gonna see, again, advanced accounting, government nonprofit, and cost accounting. Okay, so that's all rolled up onto the bar discipline. Students that would choose bar typically are probably gonna be interested in roles in these particular areas. So very financial operations, again, we already said government nonprofit, advisory, etc. If you think that bar is of interest to you and the choice that you might pursue, strategically, you're gonna wanna sit for bar after you sit for FAR. They're sisters, that's how I relate to it, right? FAR and then bar, because the content is gonna be very similar, like sisters to each other. You can sit for the exam in whatever order you want, right? You don't have to, a lot of people think, oh, you take your 3 core and then your discipline. Strategically, let's go for the discipline after its core sister, because you're already kind of in that lane. So do keep that in mind. All right, ISC. ISC, a lot of folks might casually refer to it as like the IT section or the systems section. So here you're gonna get SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, IT risk management, IT data governance, cybersecurity privacy frameworks, IT audit, we're gonna see on the ISC section of the CPA exam. ISC, again, accounting roles related here, again, very data, IT, internal controls, I already mentioned, I think audit, info systems, audit. When you start to think about the exam and the different sections, odd, reg, and bar, a lot of the content that's tested on those was on the old exam. They've gotten rid of certain things, they brought certain things over, but it's pretty tried and true. Out of the 3 disciplines, bar had a lot of material from the old exam, right? Cost accounting came over, government nonprofit. They wrote a little bit new, but a lot of it was kind of what we've already seen. On the new exam, ISC is one of the areas that has the most newest content that has never been tested on the CPA exam before. That shouldn't intimidate anybody, it's just letting you know how significant the changes are, that this stuff's never been on the exam before, so there's not a lot of reference. You can't talk to someone at a firm and say, how's ISC, or professor, I mean, it hasn't been tested before, but it's really important, and so it's hitting the exam. All right, so last, we have TCP in its name in itself. It's tax compliance and planning, more advanced tax. If regulation is routine tax, TCP is non-routine tax. So you'll see here identifying taxable, non-taxable transactions, multi-jurisdictional taxation, tax implications of business formations, liquidations, analyzing tax alternatives to maximize wealth, and also personal financial planning we're seeing here in the TCP section as well. So TCP, as I mentioned, here's all the roles, tax preparer, auditor, tax consultant, etc. TCP is kind of interesting because one of the things that's cool about TCP is if you are passionate about tax, and this is where I'm gonna show off my stuff, is in tax, this is what I like to do. The old exam, you only got to do that on one part, which is reg. If you're tax passionate, now you get to show off tax in 2 sections, because you get a choice in it, right? So you would show off tax and reg and TCP, both. TCP, like ISC, is a significantly new area of the exam. There's a lot on this section that has not been tested before, that is deemed necessary that it needs to start being tested on the CPA exam, so do keep that in mind. Okay, no one has to sign anything and sign their life away. Informal poll. Given what you've heard, how many of you think you'd probably be leaning and interested in bar? Okay, how many are thinking ISC? Okay, how many are thinking TCP? Right? Okay, good. So the fact that I had a variety showcases a lot about your program here and the curriculum, right? Especially with TCP, like there's some good tax there. Some programs, if they haven't really kind of aligned yet with the exam, I see like all hands go bar, because everyone's like, what are we doing with ISC, TCP? So that's really great. Again, once you pass your discipline, that is your discipline, and you move forward with that. Forgot to mention, we talked about the sister parts. If bar is your choice, you're sitting for bar after FAR. If TCP is your choice, you're sitting for TCP after reg. Makes sense, right? They're kind of sisters. If ISC is your choice, you're gonna sit for it after odd, but I'm gonna give a disclaimer, they're not sisters, they're cousins. Okay? It's a little different. I mean, it's the most direct shoot, but it's not like an exact direct shoot like the others are. In regards to test, oh yeah,
So I know you said like no one's gonna ask you what discipline you're gonna, like we pass your CPA with.
yeah.
So does it really like matter though? If no one's really gonna ask you, can I get the same job or a different job depending on my CPA license?
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of picking the discipline that you feel like you are the most confident in passing, that I think also that's most of interest to you, so that you get in there and dive into it. You know, one of the things that we say on our slides earlier is that we don't just get you exam ready, but we get you career ready. I do think that there's additional skills that you can pick up as you're studying that you can benefit in your career. But yeah, I mean, at this point, for the last 2 years, we've been asking employers over and over and over and over again. And they say, do we just need them to pick the discipline? Now, I'll say, this is my opinion, you know, if a firm is heavy in tax, I think you would probably choose TCP just because the students that they hire and recruit are probably tax passionate, right? So you wanna think about that.
I know it's still really early, but do we have pass rates for any of the new sections yet?
Not yet, we meet with the AICPA next week.
Okay.
Yeah, so the review providers will kind of get that front line to start to learn about that.
Like which section might have a higher pass rate?
Yeah, that's what everyone's waiting for, right? Is because that's what people are like, what's gonna have our pass rate? How are we gonna work this essentially? So we're waiting to hear back from that. Yeah, and also just early polls, because political sounds like, which sections are people registering for and enrolling in? We'll have some of that data as well. Okay, so strategy to passing the CPA exam. One of the things that I talked about, because I was talking about the parts, is there's a lot of different information out there. So a lot of groups will say FAR, get FAR out of the way first. I think that's a classic, tried and true route. Let's get FAR out of the way first. It tends to be the most intimidating. It's the volume of material. That could be a great one to knock out first. However, I would also say if you're sitting here today and you're like, Charlotte, I know my stuff, but when it comes to exams, I struggle. I just get in front of the exam and all of it goes away and I'm a poor test taker. And you're sitting here telling me now I'm gonna take like the test of all tests. If that's you, I would recommend maybe sitting for the part that you feel the most confident about first, because you'll pass it, you'll feel really good, then move on to the 3. Don't start with the one that you're the most intimidated by, right? Because then it's gonna be daunting, you're gonna get discouraged. So do keep in mind there's some different test strategies. You're gonna wanna figure out what's best for you. Just figure out where you wanna put your discipline based on the core and where you're sitting for. Okay, how many of you have heard of the CPA exam blueprints? I know all your faculty have, right? Okay, so the CPA exam blueprints, no surprise, are provided by the AICPA. That's the group that writes the CPA exam, okay? What they do is they publish the CPA exam blueprints and they send out a large survey every year, a survey or a poll. And what they do is they send that out to your professors, to the department, to candidates, but most importantly, they send this out to those hiring the next generation of CPAs. And what they're seeking is, hey, this is what we're testing on the exam, and this is how we're testing it. Is it properly reflecting what you would expect everyone to know within the first 2 years on the job? So I'm gonna reiterate that. The CPA exam is designed to test your skills of what it would be as a newly licensed CPA within your first 2 years. Not 5 years, 10 years, partner level. So keep that in mind, okay? So survey comes back a few years ago, nope, it's missing its mark. Again, the profession's changed, the CPA exam needs to evolve, hence why we have this new exam model. So the AICPA blueprints, I don't expect you guys all to memorize them, read them, trust me, that's why you rely on a review course. This is everything we do, right? This is our guide, everything we do has to point to these. But I do think it's important to know what they are and why they're important. It's like going to class and not getting a syllabus and knowing the objectives of the course. So here's how the CPA blueprints work. You have a representative task. So the representative task at hand is prepare a classified balance sheet from a trial balance and supporting documentation. That's telling me what I'm going to be tested on. So this is the skill set that I'm showing off right here. Then what it's telling me is what skill level am I going to be tested at, right? So critical thinking skill level. What is it going to look like? If the task at hand is tested at remembering and understanding, I'm only going to see that in UWorld and on the exam as a multiple choice question. Basic, A, B, C, D. Okay? If a task is tested at the application level, we're moving on up. I can see this in the CPA review and on the exam as either a multiple choice question or a task-based simulation. It's called a TBS. Task-based simulations, they're more reflective of the real world, right? You might be given a number of exhibits, some spreadsheets, a memo, an email, and you're having to work through a problem based on all of these assets to solve the problem. Think about it. I don't go to work every day, you're not gonna go to work every day taking multiple choice quizzes. No, I'm gonna get a problem from my boss or a client and saying, figure it out, okay? Some of the stuff that they provide in the exhibits have nothing to do with actually solving the problem. That's where you're gonna push your critical thinking skills to figure it out, all right? So application, TBS, or multiple choice. Once we go up, analysis and evaluation, those are only gonna be tested at with the task-based simulation level. Make sense? Because we're gonna get into the questions. Okay, so for example, I see here, detect, investigate, and correct discrepancies while agreeing the income statement amounts to supporting documentation, including the source data, TBS. I'm gonna be pushed at the analysis level. The only section that has evaluation level is audit. Audit core goes all the way up. Okay, so what am I being tested on and how am I going to be tested? Here's the breakdown of what you're gonna see. Each section of the CPA exam is a 4-part exam. So you're gonna take 4, I know, I saw the nonverbal just now, you're like, what? So 4 times 4, so in the end, it's a 16-hour, but you're not sitting for all of it at once, okay? You study for a part, you pass a part. You study for a part, you pass a part. You don't try to study for odd and part at the same time, you just stay in odd lane, right? And you pass odd. What does the 4 hours look like? So you have 5 testlets. Testlet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no matter what section you sit for. Testlets 1 and 2, all your multiple choice questions. Testlets 3, 4, 5 is where you see all your task-based simulations. So they don't mix them up. You're not doing like a multiple choice and TBS, right? They're kind of contained. What you need to know, you're in Testlet 1 in audit, you have 39 questions. I can hop around as much as I want. I can go question 1, 10, 20, skip, go back around. Once I'm done with those 39 and I go on to Testlet 2, I cannot go back to Testlet 1, right? So this is where we start to factor in, it's not a matter of just feeling confident about the content, but also time management. We do surveys every year and we ask candidates that have passed in our course what was the biggest hurdle, and we also ask faculty, CPA, a lot of them say, I felt like I really knew the content, it was the time management snuck up on me. Time to study, time to plan, time on the actual exam. So our goal is that we want to make sure that you're ready to master that. What that means is when you first start, if you take UWorld, you first start with UWorld, you're gonna open up some multiple choice questions and you're gonna be like, wow, I have not seen this concept in a while. I've got to refresh on it. It's gonna take you a while and you're gonna get back on the horse. The end goal is by the time you're exam ready, we've got you at about a minute and a half per multiple choice question and about 15 to 20 minutes per task-based simulation. You are timed in our course so that you can really have a full understanding of, am I ready with my time management, as well as also getting the answers correct. Moving on, you'll see the total number of multiple choice and task-based simulation, and then the score weighting. So 5 of the sections, it's always where everybody's eyes go going, and zero in on that. So all the sections except for ISC, 50% of your score comes from your multiple choice, 50% of your score comes from your task-based simulation. Remember what I said earlier, ISC is a significantly newer area on the exam. They simply made the decision to have a more multiple choice on that section for the time being. Keep in mind though, sure it's 60% multiple choice, but let's take a look. 82 multiple choice questions compared to 50. 82 multiple choice questions compared to 50. So it's balancing out. You're gonna see more on the ISC section. Again, study part, sit for a part, study for a part, sit a part. Eventually you're gonna pass all 4 parts, but that is what your 4-hour experience looks like. Testing schedule. So I don't think no one was doing sitting this year, right? Is that what I heard? Okay. Well, maybe this is all gonna get cleared up by next year, but I'm gonna tell you what's going on this year so that everybody is informed. Typically with the CPA exam, you have what's called continuous testing. You can sit all year, right? You study, you sit, it's pretty kind of open. Other exams like CFA, you can only sit 4 times a year. Old CPA exam, a few years ago, you could only sit a few times a year. Now it's been continuous testing, which is great for the candidate. This year though, we're not in continuous testing. This year, because of the new exam, it's very structured. So what that means, and I'm just gonna inform you all, is in quarter one, January 10th through March 26th, people can sit for the core, bar, red, reg, odd. Then disciplines though, they can only sit for ISC, bar, and TCP during this short window of opportunity. Why? Less people are sitting for the disciplines, there's more cores in our discipline overall, and they want an opportunity to kind of calibrate, get the feedback on the exams, and so they're kind of being a little bit hyper-structured on this. The pain point, if I spark your interest and you're like, I'm gonna start joining some Reddit threads, or you start talking to people about the CPA exam, the biggest pain point is the score release this year. Why? So let's think about candidates that are sitting right now. If you sit for a section of the CPA exam right now, you're not gonna get your score until June 4th. Right? Ouch. Okay. If you sit for a discipline, which is already done, you won't get your score until April 24th. Lots of opportunity. As I mentioned, we're meeting with the AICPA, NASBA next week. We meet with them regularly. They are very well aware of this, that we're like, hey, this is the #1 pain point for candidates. We've got to figure out if we can shorten those windows. I have full confidence they will, if they can, but I think it's like when you go to dinner and the host quotes you 30-minute wait and it's really 15. It's like we want to under-promise and over-deliver versus the other way around. Okay, so do keep in mind, by 2025, this could be back on continuous testing. I just want to share with everybody what's kind of going on if you hear about it. The next is, how many of you have heard you have 18 months to pass all 4 parts of the exam? Okay, how many of you heard now you have 30? New information, new news. Okay, so CPA exam, up until recently, for a very long time, you had 18 months or a year and a half to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam. Clock starts ticking when you pass the first part, not when you start studying, right? So I always tell everyone, if you want to study for 2 months and then sit, you got to jump on it. What happened is NASBA, so they kind of manage the process, the admin, etc. They passed what's called a 30-month rule, and they said, we are okay, we will move to 30 months to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam. They pass that rule, then they take it down to the states, and the states get to determine what they want to do, if they want to move to that 30-month or not, okay? Good news is, Georgia's in green. Georgia passed, you now have 30 months to pass all 4 parts of the exam. I saw someone say Washington. Washington went all the way to 36, okay. So, here's what I'm gonna share. This is Charlotte's opinion, not opinion of UWorld. I think this is great for the candidate, but I want you guys to look at this as a parachute and a backup plan. One of the biggest problems with students and passing the exam is procrastination. Remember, that was my first slide right out of the gate. So I don't want anyone sitting here going, I have 2.5 years to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam. Do you think that's going to be to your advantage, right? So set your goal a year, 9 months, year and a half. Focus on the parts and get them passed. Know that this is a backup. The main reason that they did this is 18 months only allowed 1 busy season. Let's say you go, all right, Charlotte, I hear you, I'm gonna pass 1 part, I'm gonna pass 2 parts, but I'm gonna start work, and I'm working, and it's busy season. And frankly, at the end of the day, busy season and CPA exam are competing with each other. I'm in busy season. This allows 2 busy seasons, essentially. But again, does anyone really wanna be studying for the CPA exam for 2.5 years of their life? So do keep that in mind. Okay, I say this is the exception, not the rule. Any questions? Give me a lot to think about. Okay, so we all feel good about the 6 parts, but you only pass 4. You start thinking about your discipline, strategy of which parts you're gonna take. You've seen what the exam itself looks like for the structure. And then also here again, we've got 30 months to pass all 4 parts. That's kind of the bulk of what today has been all about. So now I'm going to shift gears to establishing efficient study habits. So when you start thinking about the exam, the goal is, I think, knowledge is power. My goal is to inform you, not overwhelm you. So I know a lot of you are taking notes, but you want to walk out feeling a little more empowered. Is no matter what, to set up for success, build a support system. Guys, I can't recommend this enough. Significant other, family, friends, tell them what you're studying. Tell them your goals. Tell them what you learned today. Hey, it's 4 hours times 4. I'm going to be studying for this, but also the potential for your career and the opportunity. They're going to be your biggest fans, right? They're going to celebrate with you when you passed. One of my favorite stories is there was a professor I worked with in Louisiana, and she said that her dad drove her to the Prometric testing site because she was just so nervous and she just wanted to focus looking on some flashcards last minute, right? So you want to build your support system, especially as you're gonna be sacrificing a little bit of your time for the exam, and you want them to understand that, support you. Clear your calendar and your distractions. If it can wait, it can wait, right? So one time, let's get it done with. Plan to study at the same time every day. How many of you really rock and roll with your study in the morning? You're kind of an early, it's fresh, it's good to go. Okay, same. We're always the anomaly when I'm on campus. Okay, how many of you, it's kind of that middle of the day, it's like everybody else is taking a nap, you get jammed in between like 2 and 6 o'clock. All right, and the massive majority of show of hands of college students, how many of you are late night? Late nights, yeah, that's usually what it is. So I would recommend whatever's working for you right now, you roll that right into CPA review, right? If it's nighttime, you want the TV on in the background, whatever that environment looks like that works for you, replicate that environment when it comes to studying for the CPA exam. Stick to your own schedule and stay committed to it. Customize your study planner, I'll show in a moment. Schedule your exams early. The exams are tested at Prometric Testing Center. They do fill up, so that's something as you get closer to it, you're gonna wanna think about. And then schedule your advising session. So I'm one of our CPA exam advisors. If I have said anything today that you're like, Charlotte, I need a one-on-one, I have some very specific questions, I wanna talk this out. My contact information at the end, you can contact me, we can put it on the calendar, it's 30 minutes, I'm all yours, virtual call. We can talk about it. I joke around sometimes it's like CPA review therapy, okay? So we can do that together. So with UWorld, as I mentioned earlier, we talked about the blueprints. So we as a review course provider made the very specific strategic decision to redo our entire course for the new evolution. We felt that it was a big enough opportunity, a big enough deal. Hey, it's a brand new course, brand new structure, let's really do this right. The way that I describe it is with some of the other review providers, what we've seen now, especially with student feedback, is that they added an addition to the house, remodeled it here, moved things around there. What we decided to do is build a completely brand new house next door. So it's our brand new 2024 CPA exam review product. As mentioned here, so these are gonna be two of the guys you're gonna spend a lot of time with. So you've got Roger Phillip on the left, Peter Linto on the right. Both are really recognized and known for being fun, a lot of memory aids, mnemonics, straight shooters. They know what you're studying for. They've had an enormous amount of success. Millions of students have passed under both of them. They're both, we used to joke around for years, like, could you imagine what would happen if Roger Phillip and Peter Linto were in the same course? Well, they are. Yeah,
I'm so excited for y'all.
so we're really excited for our students. So both of them, what I recommend is you can go to YouTube. So we just did, Peter and myself and Quinn, colleague, we just did a webinar in January called Navigating the Disciplines. Peter goes much deeper into the disciplines than I did today. It'd be a great feel to see what it's like to learn from him and get more information from what you're hearing today. And then Roger Phillip has a lot of videos, especially in intermediate accounting and auditing, where he's talking about some memory aids and mnemonics that could apply to what you're learning today. In addition to Peter and Roger, our whole content team, this is some of them, these are our featured lectures. So you'll see here one of my favorite, ironically, who was just here, Dr. Greg Carnes. He's the Dean at University of Northern Alabama, and he actually writes a lot of our tax content with Dr. Youngberg here. They are the head authors on one of the leading Wiley tax textbooks, and so they wrote all of our reg, TCP, and they're featured in our course. Another highlight here is you'll see Amber. She's a CPA. Amber is actually one of our newer instructors. She just left a career at one of the big four, so she's featured, I think, in BAR and ISC, and she's going to talk about what you need to see on the exam, but she'll literally say, this is what you do on the job, and so it's going to become a little bit more applicable, which I think a lot of us like to learn for a lot more than just theory. Okay, now let's get into the blueprints. As you all know what these are because you've seen them now. So how did we design our course around the blueprints? So representative task, skill level here. So what we've done is we've mapped our textbooks to go to the blueprints. So you'll see right here we have content, group, and topic is current period historical analysis including the use of data. Chapter 1. Current period historical analysis, including the use of data. Topic 1, financial statement analysis. Lecture 1, financial statement analysis. Every single question, parts of the book, and lecture videos is telling you exactly where you're at and why you're studying it. If it's not on the blueprints, it's not in the review course. Why are we trying to learn stuff that has nothing to do with sitting for the exam? right? Because there'll be moments you go, why am I having to learn this, right? It's like my kids are in high school, it's like, why am I having to learn this? How am I gonna apply this to my life? It's in here because you're gonna see it on the exam. So how does the textbooks organize? This is a sample from our book. Right here, this chapter, the task at hand is an application level, so I can see it as a multiple choice or a TVS. I have to determine attribute structures, format, and sources of data needed to prepare financial statements. So it's outlined right there. It's immediate connection to what I'm having to learn and why as I'm going through the textbook, okay? I think out of all the features that we include in our course, the lecture videos, the textbook, our questions are phenomenally what sets our CPA review program aside from the others. The AICPA, the folks that write the exam, they release the same batch of old questions to all the review providers every year, right? No one gets one more than the other. It's what we do with them and then the questions that we write that makes us also uniquely different. Here's an example. So, which functions do freely fluctuating exchange rates perform? This was a question that we found on a thread, and a student was complaining that they didn't understand the answer correctly. They were really frustrated with their review provider, and basically they were crowdsourcing the group. Can someone help me answer this question out of their frustration? So here's the answer explanation that was given by another leading CPA review provider. As we have mentioned in our explanation of other questions, sometimes questions that are released by the AICPA are released because they will never be used again or were test questions that didn't make it to the reoccurring database. This may be the case with this question, but it's a good learning experience for candidates as questions like this may appear on any exam. According to the examiners, it appears that freely fluctuating exchange rates correct a lack of equilibrium in the balance of payments. It is clear that none of the other choices is correct. It is unclear what the statement in C, the correct answer, even means. But it's the correct answer, and we know that none of the others are correct. All right. So this student was like, what does that mean? Okay. So we looked it up. So of course I'm like, please let this be an AICPA release question, and it was. What's the question? Which functions do freely fluctuating exchange rates perform? Let's look at UWorld. Freely fluctuating exchange rates perform which of the following functions? The first thing, you're gonna have data right next to the answer choice. That is telling you what percentage of other UWorlders are choosing that very same answer. In this answer explanation, 19% are choosing C, which is wrong. That's almost 20% of the students are choosing the wrong answer. That's not a landslide, right? It is clear that none of the other choices are correct. Furthermore, here's how we answer the same question. We're gonna start with a visual illustration graph chart. Remember I mentioned earlier we do nurses, doctors, pharmacy, they're drawing organs, they're drawing all kinds of things. We have some of the coolest visuals for accounting and finance to help our visual learners. That's our answer explanation. It is a tight word count. We believe that you should be able to study everything you need for our product in the question answers alone. Of course we have the lecture videos, of course we have the books, but it's gotta come down to you understanding the questions that you're seeing and properly answering them. In addition, we're gonna provide a thorough answer choice on why the 3 alternatives are wrong. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't ask for office hours when I was getting everything right. I asked for office hours when I was getting something wrong. I wanted to correct it so I don't keep applying the wrong knowledge moving forward. You've gotta know why you got it wrong, all right? And then things to remember, and every question is tagged to a lecture video. So you watch a video, then you can practice questions, you can practice questions, go time out, I'm not doing really well, I'm gonna go back and watch the lecture video, okay? 2 tools for time management, kind of quickly wrapping up. First is our SmartPath predictive technology. So SmartPath is our proprietary data where what you're gonna be provided when you study with our course is 2 targets. Are you getting the right score? And are you practicing the right volume of questions? You hit both scores, SmartPath is gonna tell you confidently, it's time to move on. SmartPath is based on all the UWorld students that have come before you that have successfully passed the CPA exam. Why are so important? Why are they? First, volume. A lot of students think that the way you pass the CPA exam is you've got to do thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of questions, and you will hit a point of diminishing returns. You will burn out. Doesn't matter the volume if you're not understanding what you're doing, okay? So target volume. And then score. What's your score? An example on the score is, let's say you're running out of time, you're looking to cut corners. You take a quick quiz in the course, 20 questions, you get 100%. Another 10 questions, 100%. You go, you know what, I'm good. I'm getting 100% on this, time to move on. SmartPath will actually say, although you're doing really well and you're showing proficiency, you haven't seen enough of the different types of questions the AICPA may test you at. So we gotta get your volume up. Once you hit both scores, you move on. SmartPath is where we have our 94% CPA exam pass rate. Basically, you do what it tells you to do, you hit your targets, you're gonna perform very well on the exam. Last time management is our study planner. Study planner helps you, it literally tells you what you need to do every day. You say, here's my exam goal. I'm aiming to sit this date. Here's what my life looks like. I do not want to study on Saturday and Sunday, right? I'm gonna give a couple hours on Monday, a little more on Tuesday. You can basically work the algorithm, and it tells you if you can hit that goal. And then it provides you every day you log in exactly what you need to do. You click on this, I'm gonna go watch the video. I click on this, I'm gonna read the book. I click on this, I'm gonna practice the questions. I'm done, success. It's like my smartwatch. I hit my goal. Okay, so it's literally gonna tell you what you need to do in order to stay on track. Last slide before my contact information. I wouldn't be a really good rep if I didn't come with a great price for you all. So on that flyer is a redemption code. If you are interested in starting to study for the CPA exam anytime this year or even early next year, that code goes towards our Elite Unlimited course. So that course will never expire. It's unlimited access, comes with everything plus more that I've talked about today, including also print books, ebooks, etc. All content is all updated regularly as the exam changes. It usually saves you anywhere between $200, $300, maybe $400 off even a discount that we're providing on our website. So I am your rep at GSW. I work with all of your faculty. Long and short of it is, you shouldn't pay what you see on the website, especially when you have a rep dedicated to coming to your campus.
Is this code going to expire at a point that you know?
May 31st. Yeah, that's usually when we kind of reset. I could be back with the same pricing this fall, but I can't guarantee that, so it's May 31st. But it never expires, so it's also something that you might want to purchase and then hold on to, so for consideration. So that code is on your flyers. That's also something I'll email afterwards to share. Last but not least, my contact information. I'm gonna raffle off a $25 Amazon gift card today, so anyone who fills out, scans that QR code, let me know kind of what your goals are, your graduation. That'll enter you to win as a thank you for being here today and spending some time with me. And with that, I know I have a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions? I know we had some questions throughout. It's a lot of information, but it's an important exam. All right, show of hands, how many at least feel like when it comes to the exam changes, you could be a 5, 6, or 7 on the poll? All right, we're feeling more informed. Okay, everyone kind of feel like you know now when you might be eligible, or you feel like a little bit more informed? How many of you think you would sit to try to study during a master's or an MBA, or why you're getting the extra 30? You're starting to think about that. Okay, that's good. I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish then.